today on Wednesday Wisdom Interview. And Gail Boyd is from New York, and she is one of the biggest and most important jazz. Um, yeah, she is a jazz management, and in all of United States, I would say. That's what I have seen. And she's also a lawyer. And I've noticed when I was in New York that no artist gets into a record company without a lawyer. So welcome, Gail. I'm
Thank
so
you so
excited
much.
to have you.
I'm so
So
happy to be here. Thank you.
yeah, well, Gail is. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Gail. She has a little problem with her knee today. It's all up, and she's was so sweet and didn't cancel the call. So Gail Boyd is president of Gail Boyd, an entertainment law firm, and Gail Boyd Artist Management, a wholly owned company of the law firm. She's a graduate of DePaul University and DePaul University School of Law. And she has been involved in entertainment since 1976. That's a long time, Gail. She's been involved specifically in music with a specialty in jazz since 1979. And other highlights of her career include the production coordinator for Quincy Jones. That must have been amazing. Producing a concert which took place in Central Park. She co-produced a gospel album for the choir of Emmanuel Baptist Church of Brooklyn, New York. And she has done all kinds of really important things for jazz. And she's now president of this NARAS Jazz Jam Committee. And they're doing really great things for helping, for example, international women in jazz, and South Brooklyn Legal Services, where she served as a chair for nearly 20 years. And as a lawyer, Gail Boyd is representing the biggest jazz artist of all in the whole jazz scene, like Betty Carter, oh my God, like Tommy Flanagan, Kenny Barron, who's on my album, Con Alma. And she's just worked with so many people, and now she's working with John Clayton and Don Braden. I met John Braden when I was in Toronto at the IAG conference a couple of years ago. I met a lot of neat people there, but they're not doing that anymore, are they? The IAGA? I haven't seen that
No, that
happening for
that
ages.
folded, but now it's JEN, Jazz Education
JEN.
Network. It's the
Well,
same
now
thing.
you can see how long ago that was. And Brianna Thomas. So that's just a little teensy weensy bit of Gail Boyd's background. I'm going to ask her to tell us more about, yeah, her growing up. How did she get in to become a lawyer? Why was jazz so important for you? And you've done so much for the jazz community, Gail. And she
Oh,
also
thank
has this
you.
wonderful program on Facebook. You should take a look at it. What's it called? Jazz Artist International?
Alternative venues for jazz.
I always forget the name of it. Alternative Venues for
Venues
Jazz.
for jazz,
And
yes.
she presents all kinds of jazz musicians all over the world, and it goes on every single night. So take a look at it. I guess it's daytime
You've
when you.
been on. You were a guest.
Yes, I was very honored to be on your show, Gail. And I just want to thank you for all that you do for the jazz scene and for the jazz community worldwide. So
Thank
now
you.
tell us a little bit about yourself, Gail. What is for you the most important things in growing up? And
I surely will. First of all, Judy, thank you so much for this invitation. I really appreciate it. And I wouldn't think of canceling it, even though I'm on vacation in
yeah,
Mexico and on my
uh,
first day fell and hurt my knee. Now I'm in bed with the biggest ice packs all over it. So I'll be
oh,
here
I
for a little.
feel for you.
I do too. If I were going to hurt my knee, I wish I could have just stayed at home. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I
it's
bet.
it's beautiful, and I'm going to enjoy it. Thank you for having me. And my story about getting in jazz is that my father and mother were divorced, and my father in Chicago was what was called a record turner, which they called disc jockeys now in the nightclubs.
Mm-hmm.
His specialty was jazz. And so whenever I would visit my father, he never knew what to do with, an 8-year-old girl. So he would just talk to me about jazz. And he would even give me tests, who's the trumpet player on here? Who's the saxophonist? And so I just really had a love of jazz at a very early age because of that. And so one day, I'm in high school by now, and he had been telling me all along about the best quartet in the world, which was the John Coltrane Quartet with Jimmy Garrison on bass and McCoy Tyner on piano and Elvin
Mm-hmm.
Jones on drums. And he said, he's going to be here Friday night. I've got to work, and I'm so sorry I can't go see them. So I'm in high school, right? So I called my mother, and I tell my mother that I'm going to spend the night with my father. And then I tell my father that I'm going home. So that gave me a few hours. So
Okay.
I went down to the jazz club on 63rd and Cottage Grove in Chicago, and I asked the owner if I could come in, and he let me come in and sit at the top of the stairs. I couldn't come in and drink anything, of course, but I sat at the top of the stairs, and I just saw John Coltrane Quartet, and I was sold. I was sold. That was 1963.
I'm getting goosebumps all over.
And from that moment on, I knew that I wanted to have a, a career in this music. I mean, I really
Yeah.
did. So I went to, of course, finish high school, went to college, went to law school, all always knowing. But I didn't know what a manager was. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go to law school and be an entertainment lawyer. And
Very good.
one of my first clients was Betty Carter.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing contracts for her and, reviewing her recording contracts and looking at her entertainment contracts. And I said, but this is fun, but you go off and perform. And that's what I want to do. I want to help shape that. And she said, oh, Gail, that's management. That's not law. And I'm saying, you mean to tell me I didn't have to get a law degree to be a manager? She's like, yeah, you could just study up on it. So I started looking into becoming a manager, even though I had my own law practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was practicing law still and managing artists. And then one day my husband said, I don't know very much about either one of those businesses you do. He said, but it seems that you're making your money practicing law and spending it all managing jazz.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know much about that, but I do know economics, and that doesn't make sense.
Right.
said,
That's what my husband always said to me. What's the input against the output? Right.
That's right. So he
It
said to
doesn't
me,
make much sense being
you
a jazz
probably need
musician.
to choose, So he said, if you had to choose, which would you rather spend most of your time on? And I said, managing artists, but it doesn't make very much money because it's jazz artists. And he said, go ahead and do it, and I'll support you till you get up and running. And so I didn't really stop practicing law so much as I let it fade down, and then I started managing more. And I still have legal clients, but not that many.
Yeah.
So that's how I got here.
Yeah, wow, that's really exciting. I think that's you know what, Gail? I think it's all about finding out your passion in life.
Absolutely.
Whether you're a jazz musician or a lawyer or whatever. Like I remember I was a socially engaged folk song a la Joan Baez, right? Singing against war and for peace and for equality of the races and of color and background. That's my thing, right? Which I'm still doing. But when I heard the chords of Con Alma with Dizzy Gillespie, because I organized that concert, this concert for the world, and we were getting money for the third world. And Willy Brandt was the chancellor and all that stuff. But when I heard the first chords of Con Alma, oh my God,
that's right.
That's it. When you get that feeling, I feel so blessed. It's really amazing. Once you get that urge, that punch, then it doesn't, it's not about money. It's not about
That's right.
it. You got to dedicate yourself to it, whatever happens, right?
Yeah,
So,
I think in jazz especially, you're meant to do it. You know what I mean? It's like it's something that you don't actually choose; it chooses you. And there's
yeah.
nothing to think of that I would rather do than work on behalf of jazz musicians. Just nothing.
Oh, that is amazing. That's really great. Now that is someone who has their calling in life, what we say,
Yes,
right? That's your
yes,
calling in life. And
absolutely.
this is all something that, of course, I've always tried to give to my children is
Mhm.
find your calling in life. Just don't get a
That's right.
job because it's money, because I've always told them, money, what's money? I mean, you have it and sometimes you don't have it, and then you
Yeah,
have it, but that's not going to make your soul really
that's right. That
sing,
well,
right?
and that's the whole thing. It's like if you really are working at your passion, then it doesn't feel like work, and you can do it longer. And
Exactly.
I'm not allergic to money. I would love to have tons of
Oh, isn't
it. But I don't want to do something just for money. If I could make money doing what it is I love, and right now it's working on behalf of jazz musicians, then I'm okay. If I can survive and, take a little vacation from time to time without busting my knee, I'm okay. I'm good.
Well, that's really great though that your husband's also offered to support you guys both while you were. I'm
Yeah.
sure that now that you have all of these international names, it's a little bit better for you.
Yeah, and now he doesn't have to. He had to
Yeah,
initially when I stopped practicing law, and he gave me that leeway, that
yeah.
runway, to switch professions.
Well, I think also for you, it's probably a great benefit to be a lawyer when you are a
Oh yeah,
manager, right?
oh yeah,
Can
it is.
tell us a little bit about your work as a manager. What exactly does a manager do?
That question could be answered differently for almost every decade that I've been working, because
Okay.
at one point, I would say in the early '90s, when record companies were signing a lot of jazz musicians, that's not happening anymore. But at one point, it was about trying to find the best deal for your
Yeah,
client,
exactly.
and trying to make sure that they gave a contract that was as fair as it could be, because I don't think any of the recording contracts are fair, honestly. But to just try to take away the biggest sting. Um,
Mm,
and so that was sort of it at the beginning: get the best record label, and then get the best team around you.
hmm
Make sure that you had a booking
hmm
agent, and making sure that you did have. I don't usually represent my clients as their lawyer and their manager. If I'm their manager, I kind of encourage them to have another lawyer look at some of their contracts, at least initially, because
hmm
there is the potential for a conflict of interest. But then
hmm
later on, as other things started sweeping in, now everyone is signed to a label, and then major labels started caring less and less about
Yeah,
jazz musicians. So
yeah,
then the next um, sort of element is that you then have to try to get the artist situated in a way where they are either crowdfunding to do their own albums, or going to labels that are no longer major labels, but sort of the mid-range labels if they can, or to get enough money to put their own album out, whether it's crowdfunding or self-funding. And then you have to kind of assemble the team as the
yeah,
manager. So you have to go out and find the publicist, the booking agent, the marketing person. And then, now you're looking at, well, who's going to help do social media marketing, not just marketing, who's going to do the radio promotions, and you have to assemble the team. So it's very, very different now than when I started.
yeah. There isn't really any record companies unless you're really, really up there like Diana Krall, really well world famous already. Then they have a record company. But generally speaking, everything's being produced online and streamed and sold online, right?
Well, that's one
Like,
of the things that I actually recommend to all my clients. I don't really try to get them a record deal in the old-fashioned sense. If anything, once they have produced their own recording, I may try to get a licensing deal with some of the
Hmm.
labels. But I don't even try that for the most part, because when you spend the money and do your own recording, and then you have to assemble your own team many times. Sometimes you can license it to a label and they still won't help you do any of those
Mm.
things,
Yeah.
or they'll do some of them, but not all. And then you pay for your own record. So you
Yeah.
license it to them, then you pay $7 a CD to be
Yeah.
able to sell
Yeah.
on the performances. So that doesn't help.
Well, it's not easy being an artist as far as getting your music out there is concerned. I remember when I had a record deal with Timeless in Holland,
Mhm.
and they never really sent me a real contract, and
Mm,
so I never got one penny from them for my
right.
Con Ama CD. Never.
That's not a new
Years.
that's not a new story. That happens so often.
And then I did take a lawyer, but if you're not really in the music business, and
Mhm,
there aren't a lot of lawyers here in Germany in the
mhm.
music business. So, and one night I just said, you know what, God behold, I did my
Mhm.
best, and at some point this CD will be in the world, and I
Yeah.
will, I will be able to get it out there. I've never given up on that.
Don't
But
don't give up.
the thing is, with getting for an artist, what is the best advice that you can give, for example, a singer who's just maybe performing, doing all kinds of gigs, and wants to get a manager? Is that something feasible, or is that should they just try doing their own booking, or who's able to then to get a manager?
It's not as easy anymore, and it has become far more difficult with the pandemic. Um,
Hmm.
I, for example, where would I even try to get a booking agent for you to book you when all I'm spending half my time right now doing is marshaling the cancellations and trying to reschedule, and or trying to get a gig for somebody who is only doing half capacity, and so my clients may not make enough money to make monetary sense because they don't have full capacity. So it's really very hard right now for me to say what should a vocalist do to try to get a manager, because we got to get out of this pandemic in a way first.
Yeah.
But I think that they should realize, all vocalists should realize that they do have a manager, and it's them.
Yeah.
They have to treat themselves like they are the business that they are, and marshal the team together, even though um, a professional manager might be able to marshal the team faster, but there are certain things that you will need. If you're going into the studio to do a recording, then you will want to make sure that you hire the best engineer, the best studio. You have to be organized enough to kind of figure out how you're going to, even down to the granular level of which songs go first. How do you make it
Hmm.
the most listenable so you can try to get on radio? Radio is not as important as it used to be,
No.
although it gives you bragging rights. I mean, if you get to be number one on Jazz Week Radio, you can brag about that, but it doesn't really
Yeah.
get you the gigs anymore.
Yeah.
Streaming has taken over,
Yeah.
and if you stream, I think I did the math on this, and I'm probably off by a lot, but I think I did it once where if you stream a song 20,000 times, you can make the same amount of money as if you sold one CD in a club.
Wow.
So
Isn't that
so
sad?
many. It's really sad, and it might be actually more thousand. It might be
Yeah.
40,000. But the point is, the economics of scale are not working right now in jazz musicians' favor. And
Yeah.
I understand it. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if it's possible to fix it, but I see that really you have to. I mean, I'm going off a little bit, because what I was trying to get to is that you have to be your own manager, and
Hmm.
look at all of those things, and then try to figure out where best you
Yep.
can make a name for yourself. Like you were just talking when we were off screen about having called a particular presenter to try to get a date, and now he's not returning your call. That happens sometimes, but it happens also to managers.
Yeah.
So having a manager doesn't always necessarily get you in those venues. Steve Backer, who was a really dear friend of mine, and he was the head of Novus Records for a while, and Arista Jazz, and lots of labels. He worked with GRP, but he used to talk about this indefinable thing called buzz. And he said, you
Yeah.
don't know why an artist will have it. Sometimes that artist will not be
Hmm.
technically as proficient as somebody else that you can go to a small local club and see, but there's
Hmm.
something that happens that's called buzz. And when that buzz is on you,
Yeah.
everybody wants to be in. Success has many mothers, failures, and
Yeah.
orphans.
Yeah. I
And so,
remember that. I
mhm,
remember when I performed at Dizzy's 75th birthday in Englewood and performed. And then I think it was his cousin. He came up to me afterwards. He said, "You got to get a buzz going, Judy, for your album.
mhm,
A buzz, right?" And
mhm.
I didn't really know exactly what he meant. Now I really know what you meant because
Yeah,
it's the same in everything you do. If you get yourself a
yeah,
buzz going as a vocal coach or as a singer, everybody
right.
wants to book you, right?
That's right. That's right.
And I think now we are in a complete different area of time where even here in Germany, the clubs are open, but it's all reduced, and only so many people are allowed in the
Right.
club and so on and so forth. But I think what you're saying is you have to be your own manager, is that singers, and I think this is something that jazz musicians as such, it's a business. You have
Yeah.
to see yourself as a business.
Yes.
And this is, like as far as going as doing advertising and getting yourself out there. No,
Mhm.
I'm a jazz musician and I will be found. And we don't do all that stuff of
No,
getting out there. And especially in Europe, I don't know what it's like in America, but I know that most of my colleagues, they're working their butts off, right? But
absolutely.
when it comes to really, doing advertising, doing promoting themselves is almost against their religion. You know what I mean?
But they have to. They have to really look at it as a business. And if there are some benefits to having professional management, it's that we are part of the network, so we can get people to pick up the phone for us and things like that. But it doesn't always mean that they will take what we're selling. And so
Exactly.
at
Hmm.
this point, I just say to all musicians that, and I always include that. I try not to say vocalist and then musician because too many people do that as though there's a difference. But you are, in fact, a jazz musician. Um, and
Absolutely.
and I hear too many people divide it and say I'm a vocalist and then I'm dealing with these musicians. And no, you're all musicians, and it takes the same level of dedication and hard work to get to the top of where you are. So having a manager sometimes can cut through some of the red tape. But if you don't have that indefinable thing called buzz, it's not going to help even if you have managers. So working on that buzz, social media, I think you're very active on social media. I see your Facebook posts and things like that.
Yeah.
And even
My
doing this kind
kids,
of show.
my kids are always complaining, "Mom, you're always on Facebook." They find it kind of embarrassing that I'm putting a lot of work into,
Yeah,
getting myself out there. And
that's right.
the thing is also for me, teaching is really a very important part of being a jazz musician, of
Mhm.
giving it further. How do you say that in English? Passing it on to
Yes, yes,
the younger generation. And yeah, without getting yourself out there and doing promotion,
right.
this is it. Nobody really comes along unless you get to a certain level. I mean, I get calls now. I mean, I've been in the business for a while, right? And I get calls from places, but generally nobody comes knocking on your door.
Oh,
And
nobody will. They don't know you're there.
they don't know you're there. And that is really one of the most, I would say, the biggest point of all things, that people cannot call you because they don't know you're there. So
I know
that
you.
means you have to get yourself and be visible
That's
out
right.
there,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
So um, I wanted to ask you, if you had to start all over again, what would you do?
If I had to start all over again, I would do exactly what I'm doing now. I have
That's what
found
I thought you were going to
Yeah,
say.
I have found the thing that makes me happy. And one of the things that makes me the happiest right now is the thing that I get absolutely no money from, and that's my daily alternative venues for jazz. I have
Yeah,
such a good time learning from all of you musicians about your journey and how you got there, because it's so far everybody who's been on the program, and I don't curate it. So tomorrow, I mean, today it might be Ron Carter, and tomorrow it might be a student just starting out in jazz. I don't
yeah,
curate it. I don't try to say, let me get the big names.
yeah,
And even then, I learn so much from the musicians who come on. But there's some things that they all have in common. And that is that it was usually somebody, a teacher or a parent, who got them hooked on jazz, as my father got me hooked on it. And it's usually something that they found pretty early that was something that they were just meant to do. It wasn't something like, oh, I think I'll be a teacher. Oh no, I think I'll be a musician. It was like they had to be a musician.
right.
And they did it, until now when I get them on my show. So I love
Yeah,
that, and we'll continue that. And I don't get paid for that at all. I just like it.
yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. You and Kathy Garcia, you guys are doing
Yeah.
so much for jazz musicians and allowing them a platform to, to at least be seen by the rest of the world. And that's really a wonderful opportunity for
Thank
all
you.
of us musicians. And of course, me being in Europe, there's not. I think in Europe the musicians are a little bit more shy about getting themselves out there. It's my feeling. So I'm
I have
gonna.
about, I would say a good 10 or 15% of the people I've presented are from Europe.
Oh,
They
okay. Yeah.
call in from all over. So they're
Okay.
trying to, they're getting themselves out there as
They're
well.
getting it. They're changing their attitude, right?
Yeah.
Where do you see people from your perspective making mistakes or missing the boat, so to speak, as far as getting gigs, getting themselves out there, getting themselves known?
Expecting something to happen without them putting the work out for it is a mistake. Just have doing a record and spending so much time on the artwork and everything, but not having a plan on how to get it into people's hands is a mistake. And you can hire a publicist, for example. If you don't do a good press release, just ask a publicist, what would it cost? Maybe you can't do the whole campaign, but what would it cost for you to write a press release for this?
Mm-hmm.
Asking someone who knows how to write liner notes, if they would just write the liner notes, because if it's somebody who is a well-respected journalist or something, then people might pay attention to it from that. So trying to do everything yourself without getting expert help is a mistake. It's another mistake not to come, not to perform with authenticity, which is something, I mean, don't try to
Yeah,
be famous, just try to be good. Don't try. And
exactly.
I had an assistant one time tell me that a person that I was managing at the time wanted to be famous more than they
Oh,
wanted to be good. And
oh.
that was skewing what anybody could do for that person, because they just wanted to know, what's the flavor of the month? What should I be singing now? What should I do to
Mm-hmm.
get, oh, I see so and so just got, this, so I want to do that kind of song. And the key is, what is your authenticity? What are
Mm-hmm.
you being driven to
Really
say?
important.
What do you want to say to me? With your
Mm-hmm.
voice, with your horn, with your piano, with your drums? What are you offering that only you can offer? I mean, I'm in awe of musicians, I have to tell you. I'm in awe of the creative urge. And I can't carry a tune in a bucket, and I can't
I
play a
don't believe that,
I can't.
Gail.
I can't. But I'm in awe of people who can. And so my goal and my mission is to help people who have that creative urge get to where they need to be.
Wow, that's really wonderful. I think that's almost, I'd love to talk to you so much longer, but I want to take, I want to know, I can't speak English sometimes, Gail. How do you say that in English? I know that you have a painting leg, and I want to
Yes.
take consideration of your
Oh,
situation. You being
thank
on
you.
holiday, I've got about 1,000 more other questions here, but I don't want to hold you up any longer. You've given some really amazing advice here to singers about
Well, thank you so much
authenticity.
for having me, and good luck on this show. It's a
You're
beautiful
so,
platform too.
Thank you, thank you. I have next week we're going to have Kathy Siegel Garcia on the show, and in April, because I'm going to be gone for a week, a month, going into the rehab clinic for my knee, I'm going to have oh my goodness, I have a problem with names, but everyone will be amazed to see who else will be on here. And I'm so thankful that you've taken the time under these conditions, Gail.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
And
so happy to have been here. Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much, and all the very best for getting well as soon as possible, that you can get out into that beautiful weather in Mexico
I
and
know.
enjoy your holiday.
I will. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you. Hope to see you sometime in real life. That would
Me
be
too.
great.
Me
Yeah.
too. All righty.
Okay, take care, Gail. Bye bye.